Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining. We'll just give it a couple more minutes to give people time to get online. So we'll be back with you very shortly. Excellent. So thanks very much for joining us today. My name is Fraser Allen and I head up the Alpha Invest team here at CMC. So pleased to bring you the second instalment of our Meet the CEO webinar series, which is exclusively available to our Alpha clients. I'll be joined by ASX listed company CEOs to provide a deep dive into the organisation and an outlook moving forward. You'll also have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the webinar, which we'll address towards the end. So there is a questions box there for you to enter those as we progress. Just got a quick disclaimer slide now for compliance purposes. Just leave that on the screen for you for a minute to read through. And before we do jump into today's session, I'm just going to provide a quick overview of the CMC Alpha program. We recently made a number of enhancements to the service earlier this year, so just want to make sure that you are getting the most out of your account here with CMC and using those Alpha benefits. So you do have the lowest brokerage rates now, which are fixed at $9.90 or 7.5 basis points. We've added a new complementary service called Rifkin Model Investment Portfolios, which has been extremely popular since launching. Rifkin are an asset manager. They're providing us with 5 different strategies based on your investment style. The event strategy, which is a low market correlation strategy based primarily on takeovers, has had the most interest. So do have a look under the product section of the platform to find out more on that. Free dynamic market data for the Aussie market and pro platform access still being provided, along with some additional research and analysis from Rifkin as well. Another new benefit is the share site investor level package, which is for your tax and portfolio reporting. We will be adding new tools and services over the coming months as well, so do look out for those. But if there's any equities that you want specific research on, do reach out to the team and we should be able to provide something for you. So on with today's session, I'm really pleased to introduce Martin Filz from Pureprofile. Martin's been in the industry for over 20 years and has done a great job with Pureprofile, which we'll obviously address today. Pleasure to have you here, Martin. Thank you very much for your time. We do really appreciate it.
No, great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Excellent. Well, let's jump straight in. So, look, we read a lot about data technology in the media today, about how it's implemented, how it's utilised. So, what does Pureprofile do, and why is it better or different?
Yeah, good question. Look, data's the new oil, the new gold. Lots of phrases about. The bottom line is brands need to understand their consumers, and they want to understand the consumers. 90% of all analysis of data is so that a company can advertise to individuals. It could be governments want to do vaccine research to understand individuals about messaging to take up vaccines, or it could be a brand with a new advertising campaign. And here we've got an image up of really what a data and insights company at its heart does. So at its heart, as I said, helps brands understand the individual. So this person, 34 years of age, single, no dependents, etc. But in actual fact, there are lots of nuances. So for example, she drives a Lexus hybrid. Therefore, when Volvo talks to this individual, they will talk about high-end hybrid cars, not about gas-guzzling SUVs. She donates 10% of her money to charity every year. Therefore, Bernardo's Australia, which is a great contact for them. She's really interested about conservation. So New South Wales are going to think about climate change when they're pushing their policies, or perhaps it's election time or something. And again, Medibank, when they're thinking about insurances, will talk to this individual about their ethical health insurance products rather than just standard, is it cheap health insurance you can have. So you can see the key is the more I know about this individual, then the better I can talk to them, the more likely they are to be my customer. And that is what Pureprofile does. Pureprofile helps brands understand individuals. Could be brand, could be individual, government, etc.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Martin. So Pureprofile essentially provides consumer insights to help businesses make more informed decisions. So could you just give us a bit more of a rundown here in terms of the company and maybe also your time as a CEO?
Yeah, happy to, great. Pureprofile's been doing this for 23 years, so we're not a startup by any means. 23 years ago, we floated on the Australian market in 2016, made a poor acquisition, wasn't well integrated into the business, wasn't as big as the business, left us with some debt as an organisation. I came on board 18 months ago, firstly to do a debt to equity swap, which we did to remove that debt mountain, and then to actually rationalise the company around what its core value was to customers, where its strengths were, and actually focusing the business. And my history is I come from a couple of much larger competitors. Pureprofile, WPP is one, and I saw and I knew in Pureprofile actually it had the essence of what the big guys do. We're already in 5 countries. We already were market leaders in Australia. We already had the right tools, but there was lots of noise. There's lots of other things. So there's nothing special, nothing incredible, but it was, we're not necessarily going to write a book about this, but it's a little bit of business 101. It was strip out what was not needed, strip out what was causing distraction in the business, bring in some great people. You said 20 years in the industry. I'm old enough that I know lots of people that I was able to tap on the shoulder and say, come join us. And then it was about focusing the company, and what we were blessed with at that stage was incredible people in the company. And everybody says that, but we really do have incredible people, and maybe we'll get on to chatting about that a bit later, but it's the essence of that as the company, and everybody should put people first because customers follow. Some great technology, some great clients, again, at the time, 600 plus clients. And that history, the brand, the strength. And when you are doing either a media campaign or you're either offering data and insights to people, they want to be able to trust you. They might be making multi-million-dollar decisions based on that research, and they want to know that that research is high quality, can be trusted, and they can make those decisions. So that was it was a no-brainer for me to help the organisation, and now as job as CEO is to make sure everybody has the right tools and then get out of the way, because everybody is much cleverer than me, much better at their job. So that's me. So that's been the history of Pureprofile. Why do people pay us money? And that's the middle column here. The three main areas. So the first area is data and insights, makes up about 60% of our revenue. And data and insights is, like we just had the picture up, understanding people a bit better. That could be either looking at and analysing raw data, or it can be sentiment. It can be running online surveys. We have access to over 20 million people around the world, so that brands can understand what people are thinking. So you end up going from the what, I've looked at some data and I've understood that this brand or this company is bigger than I am in Brisbane, but I don't know why. So I might then run a survey with all of the competitors' clients in Brisbane, or a subset of them, to say, why are you using that competitor? Now I've gone from the what to the why. I've understood I'm smaller in Brisbane. I've understood they buy because of maybe coverage that I didn't know about. So now I launch a campaign that talks to that key point. So data and insights, number one. That, as I said, majority of our revenue. Pure amplified media, we then run campaigns. All of the campaigns that we run are based on first-party data. We've got a lot of privacy going on in the world today. Google getting rid of third-party cookies. Fantastic tailwinds as a business. We are in effect a trade desk for a lot of large media agencies, as well as working directly with brands. And because we do everything around first-party data, firstly, it overcomes all the privacy concerns, it overcomes the future concerns about the lack of third-party cookies, and it is more accurate. So that's pretty cool. And that's about 15% or so of our revenue. And then the third area, which makes up the balance, is our SaaS. And so we have three key products: audience intelligence, which is our newest product, just launched in Australia last April, enables 400,000 or has 400,000 people's data, credit card expenditure and bank account expenditure all anonymous. So a brand can go into that and understand. Uber Eats, for example, is a client. Uber Eats goes into that and understand where they spend renewal, etc., etc. And then we have Insights Builder, allows organizations to directly access this huge audience that we have around the world to run surveys. And that makes up today around 10% of it. So those are our three key areas.
That's great. Incredible insight to everything you get from these clients as well. It's really good. And so what sort of type of businesses and organizations really use Pureprofile, and what are the benefits that data brings for them?
20% of the ASX 200 either uses our data directly or through a research agency, or running campaigns through an advertising agency, but that's a number that we're pretty proud of. And then you can see countless brands you love and know and recognize. So who uses us? So a direct brand might use us. We've got lots of examples of direct brands. They, as I said, want to understand their consumers, want to understand their competitors' consumers, and then their sentiment, understanding something about the individuals, and then finally launching a campaign. That's no different to government agencies use us. We do a lot of work with governments, and again, governments, especially now, we're running up to the elections. And so governments want to understand polling. They want to understand what's driving people's voting preferences or party preferences. And we do a lot of polling research at the moment, and government research at the moment. And it could be other research agencies that, again, we have access to the individuals, they have access to the client, but they want to understand directly from the people to feed that research they're doing. And then advertising agencies we do work with. So it really is the full gamut of people. And then, as you said, industry-leading brands use us as a company. I likened it, many people listening, it might be they've never heard of research before, or the impact of research. And I was involved in software, and I first got involved about 99 with research. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, this all now makes sense. We used to sell software to people and make sure we met their needs, the client needs, B2B, etc., but didn't think about how it was being used. And suddenly, in research, you had, what were the drivers? What are the drivers of people using a product or using a bank or using an investment product or whatever it might be? And actually, that is the heart of everything. If I can understand my customers, then I can actually sell more products. I can be closer to them. I can increase loyalty, stickiness, etc. It's fascinating field, and I liken it. Last point I make on that, but I liken it to, you're driving down the road in the BMW, and actually the windscreen wipers are going. The windscreen wiper rubber manufacturer is bigger than BMW. That's us. We're bigger than many of our research clients. We're like the Intel inside. We're like the bit of rubber on the windscreen wiper that nobody's heard of.
It's a great analogy. That's an impressive client. There's obviously a lot of household names there, which is great, and 20% of ASX companies is really impressive. So you kind of touched on it there about why human behaviour is so important for growing a business. Where do you think that knowledge makes the biggest impact? Is it service, loyalty, revenue, sales? Is there any way to that has the biggest impact?
It's all of the above, and it's used for different reasons. We have a large retail client who uses our audience intelligence product, analysing the data, and they use it in several different ways. Firstly, they use it to understand how are they competing, how are they doing compared to competitors and other big retail clients. But then their location-based team uses it to understand what is the postcode of individuals who are shopping at my competitors, so I can see if I should put up a store nearby. Then the board will use it because they're analysing their own net promoter score, how happy are my customers, to make sure I've got a high retention of my existing clients. And then they will use this data in customer acquisition to understand why people are using customers or going to competitors, so I can increase that level. So in a brand or in a government agency, where it's for many different uses, that same piece of information. Now, what's interesting is that this individual we've got up on the board again, her choices and her interests have changed throughout life cycle. And so when this individual is at university, then she's interested in different insurance products or different priorities in life, to when she has, well, she doesn't have dependents, but maybe buys her first house. Suddenly it's different insurance products. Gets a little bit older, thinking about superannuation investments, a bit more money comes in, and maybe it's a second home, whatever. Now, it's the same individual. They might be a Medibank client throughout their lives, but they will be buying different Medibank products throughout their life as their life stages, as they change as individuals. And the importance is that Medibank stays close to their clients throughout life stages to understand changes and to make sure that they're at the forefront of mind. So when something like COVID comes along, everybody in the world overnight changed their sentiment towards products, changed their belief factors. We all changed the way we thought about, we couldn't go on holiday, but luxury cars or luxury goods or unnecessary products that we bought, how we were buying our groceries. Everything changed overnight. So every brand, every government agency had to get in contact with all of their consumers and the population, etc., to understand what was their sentiment today, how had they changed, what was their view to this issue. And we saw, for example, we've got a slide up here about conservation and climate change being important, etc. That took a back foot. Everybody was actually interested in health. Everybody wanted to know about that much more. Everybody wanted to care about the social element of life, getting on with your neighbours, how can we look after each other. So brands had to be much more subtle in their advertising. Brands had to be much more aware of their customers' changing beliefs, as well as government agencies. So overnight, everybody had to recontact people, redo research.
Yeah, there's a real sort of evolution, I guess, of consumers' needs and desires over time. And you sort of touched on it there. But is there a sort of rule of thumb of when businesses should be reviewing customer behaviour or consumer behaviour, or is that sort of dictated by the market, things like COVID?
It's all the time. Good question, Fraser. It's all the time. A client should be talking to customer all the time. Their own customers, they should be talking when I've just bought a product. My wife won't be listening to this, so I just went for some Mother's Day goods. I should have an email now from the people I bought Mother's Day goods saying, what was your experience like? What's the shop like? What was how were you served? So that then I can get that customer experience data and act on it immediately down to a branch level. In between periods, between now and Christmas, again, that brand should be thinking about how am I changing, how they're keeping the messaging going, etc. So it is all the time. One of the big differences, and for different reasons, but one of the big changes that we've had, and again, this slide is up now, is online changed phenomenally during the last 2 years, and you really had, it was a clear defining line between those companies that COVID hurt and those companies that COVID benefited, and it is either one or the other. And if we look at those companies that it benefited, those were companies that could talk to consumers at the right time, at the right place, and the right moment, and get products to my house. Because we were all stuck at home, but we had more disposable income, so we wanted to spend it. And we can see here that non-grocery grew 56%. I mean, this happened with this joint research we did with the IAB in Australia. Here we're talking about 5 years worth of growth happened within 12 months. Online groceries, suddenly online stores, Coles, Woolworths, had to work out how am I going to keep selling broccoli and whatever and getting it out to people. That grew phenomenally. And you saw some brilliant innovation. If we talk about non-grocery, I think, for example, JB Hi-Fi grew its e-commerce sales by 78%. I think we saw Harvey Norman, was it double? And they gave back their JobKeeper allowance that they've received. Now, JB Hi-Fi, as an example, great innovation. So I wanted products there and then, didn't want to wait, everybody's impatient. What they introduced was their staff would drop products home free of charge that night. So I could order something any point up to about 4 or 5 o'clock at night. And then the staff would earn the $10 on the way home, put it in the car, and it would be at my house. That is the sort of innovation that came out of COVID to respond to this growth that we saw. Now, what's interesting in the space, and I did a piece for the AFR, I think the end of last week, and talked about streaming services. And what's interesting in streaming services is that many organisations, if I was on the side of COVID was good for the business, saw a growth. And streaming is an example. We're all sitting at home, we all bought Netflix and Stan and Disney Plus and whatever else. Netflix, since life is getting better and normality, is now since subscription levels drop off a bit and the share price drops off about 20%. Companies have got to be really careful about taking for granted all of the consumers that they gained during COVID. If I had 100 customers before during COVID, I then had 200 customers, as maybe as an example here. I've got 200 customers. What I now want to do is, I'd be good if I can keep 150. And I've got to work hard to research those consumers, have the right advertising messages to those consumers, to keep them in my customer stable whilst their choice increases, because suddenly they can go out again. Suddenly they can go on holiday to Bali or Fiji or visit family in the UK or whatever it is, and there's going to be pressure on the wallet, let alone interest rates going up, etc. So brands have got to make sure they've got the right insights and the right messages to those consumers to keep that growth that they saw because of the COVID change.
That's an incredible shift in the market over the last couple of years, and the result of COVID. And obviously Pureprofile has been growing really quickly over the last few years as well. So where are your current businesses located, and are there other countries that you might be looking to expand into as well?
Yeah, we have grown really well, so thanks for that. As I said, I joined about 18 months ago and stripped out a lot of things, and we've seen now consistent growth in the organisation. If I talk about simple things like we used to have to complete a 4C, we don't have to do a 4C anymore because the company's numbers and positive EBITDA has been occurring for approximately 7 quarters now. So that growth really has come around for 2 reasons. One reason is we're running the business better, we're focusing on where our clients are. The other reason is, as I said, industry tailwinds. As an organisation and as an industry, data and insights and media privacy, the introduction of a lot more privacy around the world, the introduction of third-party cookies being eliminated. For those of you who don't know, that is, I go to Google, do a search for a bicycle, and a second later I'm on AFR or wherever and I see bicycle ads. The publisher, News Corp or whoever it is using the third-party data from Google to give you a bicycle ad. That's going away. Suddenly all the publishers have to develop their own first-party data to sell advertising, or a big part of their revenues will go away. That's been a really strong tailwind for us. Another strong tailwind is more research that's being done. We just talked about that. And then the third point is just getting it right what we do. So as soon as we've done the debt to equity swap, clients went, wow, I really wanted to spend more money with you, but I was worried about the company. So that grew in the existing clients. Team members went, great, we've now got investment in the right areas. So that was more positive. We could win a lot more clients. The other one is, when I joined, we already had 5 global offices, but those 5 offices were really running in their own way. We joked that the London office had a red phone that occasionally rang and everybody goes, shh, that's Australia, we better answer that phone. And if we're going to be a global company, the first thing we did was ensure that it was the same experience, whether I'm a client, a partner, a team member in every office, and I have the same technology, the same global systems, etc. And so we now do that. We spent about 18 months doing that, and so I have the same experience. And now really it's about execution. It's about, today we have 8 offices around the world. We opened up mainland Europe January last year. Singapore was September last financial year, and we just opened up Malaysia. And if I look at this, you know, in Australia we're market leaders, 20% BSA, etc. In the UK or in the US, they buy the same product in the same way, for the same reasons. It's not like I have different health and safety or different messaging or different languages. The UK market, excuse me, the UK market is 14 times bigger than the Australian market. I've never worked for a global company before where the Australian market is the biggest. The US market is 40 times bigger than the Australian market. So our now opportunity is, all we have to do is execute what we do in Australia in those other markets where we have incredibly low market share. And that's working, that's happening. And 766 clients. When I joined 18 months ago, we had 600 odd, 194 staff and about 160 staff 18 months ago. And that's mainly today commercial staff outside of Australia and operations in India, where we have a large operations team to support our new based business. The 35.2 million in revenue from repeat clients, that's grown from, just last quarter was $29 million, and $6 million in annuity revenue in the past 12 months has grown from about 5.6 million in the last quarter. So all of our key metrics are growing, and it's now about executing what we do overseas. It's a no-brainer.
That's a big geographic footprint, right?
Yeah.
So yesterday you had your quarterly results announced to the market. So obviously there was a lot of growth there, which is great. Is there any sort of key areas that could be pointed to in terms of where that's really come from?
Yeah, I mean, we can see it in front of our eyes here. The key focus of business is growing that UK business. So that's grown 51% year to date. APAC still, as I said, grows considerably at 25%, so very happy with that. Overall, 43% revenue growth, and along with that, 42% EBITDA growth. And we talked about this, and I have a fantastic board and a great executive team. But with the board, we were talking about recently saying Melinda Shepherd, who's CFO, COO, a great partnership, the two of us. And we were talking to the board and said to the board, hey, I can run this at a loss. So what do you want? You know, we're growing at 43%. If you want, we can grow this at maybe 60% or maybe 100%. But that will mean I will do this at most probably negative cash flow, certainly. That's probably not negative EBITDA, but negative cash flow. Do you want that? And as a board, they said, no, that isn't the way we want to run the business. 40% growth, thank you very much indeed. 42% EBITDA growth, fantastic. And along with those lines, we don't have to do a 4C anymore, but it's positive cash flow. And actually, the most money we've ever had in the bank, we have about $4.9 million at the end of the quarter in the bank. So we're able to do this growth while still growing our cash and growing our EBITDA. So being organic about our growth, being long-term, thinking about our conservative nature, well, can we call 43% conservative nature, but being conservative ourselves. Now, we do that for several reasons. We do that because I come from spent a long time at WPP, and so there's no glory without profit. We also do that because we're a small cap today. We're a micro small cap today, and one that, although our market cap is higher than it's ever been, our share prices is not as high as it was in 2016. So we don't want a message to our shareholders that we're going to raise money to keep the lights on. We want to ensure our shareholders have confidence that we've got strong fiscal awareness and control of the business. And we've never thought about this, but now, especially because people are to high inflation, interest rates, and possibly recession coming, hey, I'd much rather have a business that is growing, has positive cash flows, positive EBITDA. If there are times that might come along that it will be harder in capital markets or harder in industry. So really, really pleased with the businesses today. Pleased growing internationally because that's our focus. Our SaaS platform, 335% growth as our clients much more start to use SaaS products, more efficient for us, faster for them, more annuity revenue, higher margins, etc. So everything's firing well.
You know, it's great being able to grow revenue pretty much in line with EBITDA as well, and it says a lot about efficiencies and the cost control and the way things are being run, which obviously what shareholders would like. So what sort of catalysts in the current market environment do you expect that might continue on for maybe 6 to 12 months or even beyond that?
Yeah, look, I see that's the consistent growth that we've had as a company, and also what's interesting is our revenue and EBITDA of last financial year, so financial year 21, we've just done it at the end of 3 quarters. So that's sort of growth we're seeing. We almost doubled our full financial year 20 revenue as soon as we have done. So as quickly in this year. So we're growing as a company. What we're seeing, I think, as an organisation when we look forward is, firstly, continue that where we have low market share growth, so with deals and partners and clients to grow in those markets, adding key commercial people in those markets. It's about execution today. We don't need to develop solutions and operations teams. It's about client facing in those markets, and it's about a 3-to-1 hire of commercial people today in the business. So that's a great place to be. When I look forward, we have more about privacy coming on board. We potentially have market conditions changing. So again, insights will grow because brands need to understand their consumers at that point. There'll be another change in consumer sentiment. Advertising, whilst it might shrink as an overall, what you typically find is you have 100 clients, goes down to 80, those 80 spend more than the 100 initially spent because they want to sell their way out of any market changes that we might have. So you've got to be on point with the advertising. We talked about, we've got Google next year stopping third-party cookies, so that will be a big positive. As a company, we have a clear roadmap to the end of financial year 24 now. And as a business, you know, which, as I said, 23 years of age, we're not a startup. We're not sitting here today to investors saying, oh, this time next year, we'll be huge. We'll dominate the world. We'll be bigger than Amazon. We have a history. We have clients, and so we're able to say we can keep growing in the respect and percentages have been growing through to the end of financial year 24 with that focus on the international market. So it's about execution for us, about commercial, about putting our products in other countries.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we've got here, the longer term growth plan. And yeah, do you see a lot of that coming from the US? Is that one of the primary drivers, or?
Yeah, it's twofold. So UK, we expect in financial year 24 will overtake the Australian revenues. The US is interesting. It's 40 times bigger, as I said, than the Australian market. You can spend a huge amount of money advertising the US, trying to grow your market share in the US, but actually not making much noise. So we're being quite considered with the US, and I've talked about this for the last 18 months or so, and about being considered, about being careful. And part of our new market strategy is we actually launch with partners who give us data. So for example, we had a big partnership in Australia. We've got about 15 or so partners who we share data with, and they're able to generate rewards for their members, insights for themselves, and revenues using our audience builder product. So Flybuys became a partner with us in April last year. That's predominantly the big growth that we've seen there in our SaaS revenues. We've got a couple of a large partner that we just signed a couple of months ago, which is the Asian parent, 35 million members across 11 markets in Asia, that we will start seeing financial 23 revenues come through for them. And then what I'm really excited to have talked about this bit yesterday. I have to be really careful how I position this, but really excited that actually we are now partnering with a large US company. So they have access to many millions of consumers, like Flybuys has about 9 million in Australia, Asian parent 35 million across Asia. As I said, they have many million in the US. We've initially signed a pilot with them. The pilot is a smaller subset of that group. Pilot will run for about 4 months or so. The pilot might not be successful, and so it might not be our entry to the US market. However, if one looks at success of partnerships such as Flybuys, etc., then one would hope that's our entry point. So that is much sooner than we were expecting in our 3-year plan, and really deals like that and opportunities like that are game changers for us as a business. So I think I've said that.
No, that's good. Yeah, it sounds like the partnerships are the ones that are real needle movers for you, and yeah, hopefully the next one goes well on that pilot. So with all this growth, you're going to need more resources. So imagine, even though a lot of the deals are partnerships, you're still going to need more staff on your side as well. So, but we're all experiencing globally this great resignation that's been done, not just in Australia but everywhere. Seeing a huge number of people decided to change jobs, and look, it kind of fits in with a lot of what you said today, where COVID has really impacted people, and they've changed their mind on what they like, what they value. It's a bit of a new world. So are you experiencing issues with sort of retaining staff as well and recruiting new staff?
Yeah, look, a good question, Fraser. I think the Great Resignation was a really nice marketing spiel of 2 words that everybody went, oh, that's interesting. What has transpired is it's really the Great Stagnation. And what you're actually seeing in the market for everybody is people aren't changing their jobs. So it's very competitive out there, because actually there are less people in the market than there have ever been before. And as I said, we're blessed at Pureprofile. We inherited this. It's not anything I generated. We're custodians of an incredible feeling and culture and community that we have. That everybody is positive, has everybody's backs, they're proactive, enjoy coming to work. We just did the Australian Great Place to Work a couple of months ago now. We scored 98 out of 100, with the highest score by multiple percentage points of any company our size. We have our 83% is our internal satisfaction survey. Anything above 78 is world class. Now, what follows is customer satisfaction. Our customer satisfaction is also at 83, our net promoter score. Anything above 73 is world class. So I would ask anybody listening today, think about all of your investments, and you should ask, what is the employee satisfaction and what is the net promoter score? Because if both are high, revenues follow and the company follows being successful. So firstly, we're really careful about who we bring on board. So it is typically senior people. The assumption is they know what they're doing. So the most important thing is actually culturally will they fit into the company. Will actually I admire them? Will I want to learn from them? Can I learn from them? Will they fit well into culture? Not diversity, phenomenally important. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about culturally, personality-wise. We don't want egos. We don't want prima donnas. There's no politics. It's about actually having a collaborative but diverse environment. So that's the first important thing is at the hiring. Next, you've got to think about we're in a new COVID world, right? The majority of people, and you've only got to open up any social media that you might read today, people don't want to be forced to go back to an office 5 days a week, right? We've been separated from families. It's huge amounts of heartache that have happened in the last 2 years and countless considerations and negativity for people, which everybody knows. But one of the positives is actually I've got a bit of time to myself. I don't have to commute for an hour. I can have dinner with my children. I can maybe do something during the day. I can do mindfulness or exercise or whatever it may well be. And so in this new COVID world, you've really got to be flexible about how people come to work for you. So we have people working in Brisbane or Adelaide, or we have offices in London. We have people working in Manchester or out of city. We don't have offices there. And so you've got to make sure you have the right systems and the right infrastructure and the right managers training and the right measurements, etc., so that people can feel empowered sitting wherever they're sitting, but can still have dinner with their children. So that's really important. And that helps. This is all without us thinking about salaries today. Also, little nuances, like, for example, something I'm really pleased, Globetrotters program is something we just rolled out. We're now at a time we can jump on an aeroplane. I'm from England, living in Australia. I haven't seen my family for several years, along with many other people who might be from Asian countries, etc. We've introduced Globetrotters program. You can work for 3 months from any country, as long as you work the hours of the office you come from. If I want to sit on a beach in Fiji, or I want to sit in Bali, or I want to be close to my family in the UK, I'm able to do that. It's things like that, and there are many other examples about being close to employees. And just like as a company, we're proud that we put customers first. You need to think about what are the drivers for your team members. And then during this stagnation, as opposed to great resignation, then actually in this competitive world, maybe the grass isn't quite greener. Maybe actually I'm happier because I can go and live on the Central Coast, or I can go and live in the Southern Highlands for a company whose office is in Sydney.
Yeah, that's an incredible employee benefit package, and the Globetrotters program is definitely something I can imagine a lot of people are interested in, especially being able to work from home now. So it's great. I think that's it's been a really amazing insight, Martin, and you've covered across so many aspects of the business, the staff. It's really, really impressive. So just some of the questions that we do have. I think you've sort of touched on a couple of these really, but how do you go about getting new clients, for example?
Yeah, good question. Look, new clients, it depends what solution. One of the benefits of Pureprofile is I have loads of levers to pull. So as a business, we've got data and insights and media as our two big levers. So both are up, but one could be up and compensate for the other. Within data and insights and media, I've got geographies. So we actually conducted research in 90 countries in the last 12 months, but I have offices in 8 countries. So I've got levers of different markets, can be up or down. Everyone is up and down. And then I've got levers of products. So I've got either direct, carrying out data and insights or media campaigns using our Indian offices, or I've got our SaaS products. So I've got so many levers at hand. So long way of answering your question, it depends what solution it is. So if it's one of our SaaS solutions, then maybe I've heard about it through a partner, or I've heard about it through advertising. I register online, start using that solution. The first thing we know about it is an invoice that we need to deliver somebody who's used SaaS product. If it is something that is more hand-holding, more consultative, then it's through having great commercial people around the world who are senior people that have the trust, that have that one-on-one relationship with our B2B clients and bring those B2B clients. So it's different ways for different clients. It's all about do your job really well, deliver quality, deliver it quickly at the right time, and deliver it at the right price. So if you put clients first, do that. I've got really happy, motivated employees. Clients want to work with you, and then it becomes a word of mouth.
Yeah, sure. And on the other side of the coin, then the actual consumers and the insights. You mentioned the partnerships are a real way of boosting the numbers there. Do you do a lot of gathering yourself as well as a company?
Yeah, we do. So at the end of every project, our customers are sent a survey as to how did that work? What do you think of that? We analyse that and either ring them up or make suggestions, etc. And they can be positive as well as negative improvements. At the end of every project, consumers are asked, how did that run for you? What did you think? Well, and they might come back and say, it was boring, it was too long, it was not enough reward. So again, you make actions on that. We continually talk to our team members about what are they thinking about working for Pureprofile, working with clients, and the whole of the business is about continual improvement. And the best way of continual improvement is not sitting in a room with 8 people coming up with the next greatest idea, because we're all so clever. But actually, continual improvement comes from continually talking to everybody, and that is customers, it is consumers, it is our team members, and then taking the appropriate action.
You're absolutely right. So one other question, you have sort of touched on this as well, but just wanted to clarify, it was around the stock price dip. So you mentioned you're up at huge highs in terms of share price in 2016. You mentioned that reflected the debt, but you did the debt to equity conversion, and that so the share price is lower than it was in 2016, but it's actually the market cap is higher due to that.
Yeah, exactly. So you can look back. I think we peaked about 55 cents or something back in 2016, but at that point the market cap was about $70 million. We peaked in about September of this financial year at 8.8 cents, which gave us a market cap of close to $90 million. So 8.8 cents was actually a higher market cap. And then what's interesting, and CEOs, I'm sure everybody says, CEOs said, our market cap is too low and our share price is too low. What's really interesting though, and I won't say that, but you can imagine what I'm thinking. But what's really interesting as a business is, back in September, we were $90 million market cap. I've grown 43% since then, broadly speaking. My EBITDA has grown. I've added new clients. I've added new partners, the Asian parent, Flybuys is growing, SaaS is growing, etc. And yet, my share price has gone from 8.8 to, as we do this call, about 5.2, whatever it is. So what's really interesting, what as a CEO you've got to be really cautious of, is recognizing that the business is related to the share price is related to the business, but equally they're two different things. And so it's a busy time for us regarding investors because we've just had our quarterly, so doing really enjoyable conversations, getting shareholder feedback about us as a business as well. But we've got to remember that actually running a great business, a strong business with strong growth, and guess what? The share price will catch up immediately afterwards. And so eventually, so when I look at good companies to look at, if you haven't heard of Pureprofile before, please look at RSX listed. I'm not doing any commercial, but YouGov is a really good example. So YouGov is London stock market listed. They say that they'll do about 200 million pounds of revenue this year. Their market cap is about $1.4 billion, so 200 million to 1.4 billion. We are sitting this year, we'll finish about 44 million Australian, so we're at 30 something US, and yet our market cap is at about 50 something. So as an organization, I'm not saying we aim to be YouGov and we do something similar and something a lot of things better, but that is a really good proxy to us as an organisation. So look forward to actually when is Pureprofile going to be YouGov. And today there are only 5 companies globally in the whole global market. So if I just took data and insight, it's a $69 billion US market. There are only 5 companies who have northern and southern hemisphere offices. Number one company called Dynata, privately owned, venture capital owned, they're about 700 million approximately US dollars of revenue. Second is WPP company, Lightspeed, and they're at about 300 million of revenue. The third is YouGov, 200 million revenue. Fourth is little private company in France, Toulouse, about 150 million, little Pureprofile. So that highlights the market share, and we know we're doing the right things, and it's now about why are those so big? Because they're big in the US, they're big in Europe. Why aren't we the same? But we actually just haven't executed in those markets. So YouGov, look at them, good example, but we just keep on doing what we're doing, and the share price will eventually keep registering, and I'll keep topping up.
That's right. It's a huge market by the sounds of it. You sound really well placed to take advantage of that moving forward. With yourself at the helm as well. Are there any sort of key challenges or headwinds that you might just want to flag? Or
yeah, I think we touched on a couple. I think finding the right people in the right markets at the right time for anyone, that's a challenge without a shadow of doubt. I think we've also creating a rod for our own back with 42% growth consistently quarter after quarter. That's not always going to continue. I was talking to somebody the other day, we start to lack big growth quarters and big growth months, and we would be really happy if we're growing at 25% at the top line, but actually gain strong EBITDA and strong cash flow growth. So it's not a concern for us because, hey, I still love to be investing in businesses that are growing that fast, but it's about the market saying, well, actually suddenly even from 42 to 25. So that's something I think about, but not a concern. And then really it's just about us executing. So as I said, we have such low market share in the other markets. It was about finding a strong US partner and being nuanced, something different in the US, not just saying, hey, here we are, we consumers along with everybody else will focus on social research and social impact with this partner. So that's really exciting. Perhaps there will be 1 or 2 small aggregation acquisitions in the UK and in Europe that gives us acceleration in our 3-year plan. So it really is down to us. And so it was, as somebody sent to me overnight, said, you must be really proud of what you're achieving. Well, firstly, it's not me, it's the whole company. As I said earlier, just get out of the way of much more clever people than I am, give them the right tools. But we already knew our results. It was nice to hear the positive feedback yesterday, and then it's today, and today is about how is our company doing today, how's it doing tomorrow, and how's it doing next quarter. So you really quickly are just back in the throes of building a great business.
That's amazing. Well, look, Martin, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been incredible getting your insight, your expertise. Sounds like Pureprofile's got an amazing future ahead, and certainly wish you the best with that. Certainly be a stock I'll be monitoring now as well, as I'm sure everyone online will be too. And thanks to everyone online who did join us today. Do appreciate your time. It's a valuable commodity for everyone. So the next Meet the CEO session, we'll be looking at July or August, but in the meantime, we will be running a webinar with Rivkin. That'll probably be in the next 4 weeks, so do keep an eye out for that. And if you do want to find out more about the new Alpha services, you want to have a chat with myself or one of our relationship managers in the team, you've got the contact details there on that slide to get in touch with us. Thanks again.